Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the 8 must-have capabilities for secure file transfer. My name is János Rocik, and I'm going to be your host today. So today, we will explore the challenges of traditional file transfer and the security approaches, highlighting why advanced protection is more important than ever, and show you how OPSWAT Meta Defender MFT can help you boost your defense. So I'm joined today by two excellent speakers, Szilárd Itzel, our Senior Product Manager, and Stephen Bradwell, Lead Solution Engineer at OPSWAT. Together, they will work through real-world challenges and how the Meta Defender MFT will resolve your problems. So before we get started, let's quickly run through our agenda. So we will visit the 8 must-have secure capabilities, including secure access control, end-to-end encryption, file integrity, file extraction and file type verification, advanced threat detection and prevention technologies, and data loss prevention, supervisor approval workflows, and last but not least, the outbreak prevention. Before we end up our session, we will have a quick Q&A session and a summary.
Thanks, János. Hello, everyone. So, as János alluded to, I've been helping organizations deploy file transfer solutions for quite some time. And today, I thought, well, Szilárd and I would discuss a very important aspect that many people overlook. Unless, of course, I don't know, something bad happens or a compliance audit looms. And that is security. This is, what do you have to do to go from a simple file transfer to an actual secure file transfer solution? And to do that, we're going to spend the next few minutes looking at, well, as it says on the screen, the 8 must-have security capabilities. What are the challenges? And hopefully Szilárd will explain how they should be addressed. So without further ado, let's start with secure access control. First of all, let's talk about unauthorized access. How can you control where people are accessing the service? Where are they uploading the files or downloading the files from? Or even if you take it a little step further, many companies today have certain restrictions where they'll only allow certain individuals or businesses or vendors, B2B, B2C, all that great stuff, to upload files. And that's all they can do. Why would you let a vendor that's uploading a patch also download something? And also, if it's on the other side, maybe you only allow certain groups to download. You don't allow them to upload, and only specific files. All of that needs to be controlled. And on that note, just throw something else out there. How do you know they are who they say they are? And that their credentials maybe have been compromised or haven't been? How do you know? Companies today not only need to track file movements, but in my opinion, they also need to be fully aware of unauthorized access attempts. And Szilárd, I don't know, do you agree? What are your thoughts on, pretty much everything that I just threw at you?
Stephen, great start. And first of all, thanks for having me in this discussion. So we are starting with a very important and very great question. So controlling access starts with strong authentication and robust authorization mechanisms. Okay, we are not living in the old world anymore where everyone has access to the same FTP server and it's the sort of the wide west of files being downloaded, uploaded, shared, modified, deleted, etc., etc. In a modern MFT solution, there's supposed to be some fine-grained role-based access control implemented. And we have that in our Meta Defender MFT solution as well. And through a well-defined RBAC, you can assign highly specific permissions like upload only to a vendor, for example, to stick with your example, Stephen, or while restricting downloads to internal groups only. This ensures that individuals can only do what they are supposed to be able to do and not do anything else. And to reinforce this further, we are also supporting IP whitelisting, which restricts access to known trusted networks. This is especially useful for companies that want to block access from outside their corporate environment, for example, or specific network ranges for that matter. When it comes to identity verification, we don't just rely simply on username and passwords alone. We integrate with enterprise identity providers using LDAP, Active Directory, Entra ID, and support MFA, multi-factor authentication, out of the box, integrated into our solution. That means users can be required to verify their identity using additional factors like a mobile push, for example. Passwords can be leaked or stolen. That happens all the time. I think the news are full of this. And they can be leaked or stolen in countless ways. That's whether that's through phishing or credential stuffing, or simply being reused across systems. So relying on them alone is just not enough for in today's time. That's why MFA is actually an essential feature, adding sort of a secured second layer of verification that significantly reduces the risk of any unauthorized access. On top of that, we log every single action. Needless to say, a very important aspect for compliance purposes. We log everything that happens within MFA to be able to trace it back if anything happens. So in short, secure access isn't just about saying yes or no, you can come in or not. It's about context, it's about identity, it's about behavior and the ongoing visibility aspects.
Brilliant. Perfect. Well, that answered that one, mate. So, okay, so once we've got access to upload and we are, well, obviously who we say we are, how can we ensure that the files are secure, you know, whether they're in motion, transit, or even on disk, so data at rest? And I don't just mean the initial upload or the download, but many customers are automatically transferring files across multiple domains, boundaries, whether they're going from high to low or low to high environments. I mean, how can we ensure there's no risk of exposure there? And carrying it on a little bit more, because these are rarely greenfield and deployments and things like that. How can we work alongside their existing infrastructure? Maybe they've got a single firewall or back-to-back firewalls, or even, as more and more customers now are using, dare I say it, data diodes.
Absolutely, Stephen, and thanks for asking the complex questions instead of the simple questions.
You're welcome, mate. I think I'll trip you up. It's all right.
Let's break it down, okay? Because everything that you mentioned in this section is extremely important on its own right, okay? So yes, once the access is granted, we are definitely not done, okay? Let's just establish that. Files need to be protected both as they are in transit and also at rest. So we use secure protocols like HTTPS to ensure that data is moving across networks, it's encrypted and secure. And once the files land on a system, they are immediately encrypted at rest as well using AES 256, which is the gold standard for file encryptions. Now, for more complex environments, the ones that you mentioned as well, where customers are transferring files across domains, multiple boundaries, or these typical high to low trust zones, we support secure multi-hop transfers where an MFT leg is deployed across multiple networks, and as such, we ensure secure and safe travel between these MFT legs. And that, at the same time, ensures that there is safe travel across these network boundaries. As I mentioned, we use trusted and encrypted protocols. And I have mentioned, as you mentioned, data diodes as well. Absolutely, data diode compatibility is like almost a must-have nowadays in an MFT solution. More and more customers, especially those that are very much security risk aware, employing data diodes to ensure that physically there is no way to transfer data backwards. So yeah, absolutely, the compatibility is important, and we work that in our MetaDefender MFT solution as well. This is especially important in government or CNI type of scenarios where information flow must follow strict one-way patterns and regulatory controls. And needless to say, a lot of our customers are, by regulations, they need to comply with regulations. They are commanded to use data diodes in between. So one thing we are really mindful of is fitting into existing customer environments. We can't just ask customers to rethink their infrastructure just for our sake. So we are not asking them to rip and replace what they already have. Our MFT solution is designed to slot into air-gapped networks, for instance, or layered security zones, and to work alongside legacy systems as well. Whether it's through API integrations or secure handoff points, doesn't matter. We play nicely in complex architectures. And to reduce risk even further, the risk of human error, which, whether we like it or not, is very often the weakest link, customers can set up automated workflows. These can scan, tag, route, and securely move files without anyone having to click a button. So if your organization decides so, and you have a basis of automation based on tags, based on certain attributes, then definitely we are supporting that. And this is basically policy enforcement to make sure only the right files go where they are supposed to go. So yes, we take the upload part very, very seriously. It's not just about getting the file into the system. It's about, because that's just the first leg. It's about controlling where it goes. And I think the word control, we're going to hear a lot during this session, because you want to be in control. Okay, we want to enable your organization to be in control, and yeah, just control where files go, how they are protected during every step of the way, and ensure it never ends up in the wrong hands or in the wrong zone. So controlling the flow is the name of the game. Absolutely.
Makes sense.
The next step, which is the file integrity. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right, mate. So moving on, we've access to upload and download files now, and they're being transferred securely. But customers and enterprises need to assure, they need to know that the file they're uploading is the same one they're downloading. You know, how can they ensure it's exactly the same? You know, how do they know that it hasn't been corrupted or manipulated or changed or tampered with in any way? Because if it is, well, you've lost the trust. What do you think to that, Szilard?
This definitely is a big one. So file integrity is absolutely critical. Every file that comes into the system needs to get a cryptographic treatment. It needs to get its own cryptographic hash. Typically, it's a SHA-256 industry standard in multiple ways. And we track that throughout the life cycle of the file, whether it's moving across systems, between our systems, being downloaded, or even just stored. We can always verify that the content hasn't changed. And for auditing purposes, we keep a full chain of custody within our ecosystem. So timestamps, user actions, hash comparisons. If everything would be altered, we would know. Definitely, we would know through these built-in mechanisms. So Stephen, yeah, absolutely a big one. File integrity, very key element of a modern MFT solution.
Brilliant, mate. That's 3 for 3. You're doing well. I'll get you on the next one. Don't worry. So what's number 4? File extraction and verification. Okay, so this is now, for me, we're moving into a very interesting part. I like to look at the actual files themselves. So we've just discussed how you can ensure that the files, you know, are the same file that's coming in. You can upload it. You've proven it that it hasn't changed. But all you've done then, technically, is guaranteed that the same bad file is now in your zone, right? I mean, in all honesty, there's things we have to do around that. I mean, let's look at many customers and many enterprises today. They want to know that the file is exactly what it says it is. You know, there's no point, I don't know, banning executables and then being easily tricked with a fake file extension. You know, oh, it's a text file. Is it? How do we know? Well, what if it's an archive file, a zip file, a cab file, a self-extracting executable? I mean, all it takes is one bad file. And if all you're doing is checking 5 levels deep in an archive, that's quite a common limitation if we're going to be honest. Then what if the threat's in the 6th level or the 7th level? I mean, the other day, a customer sent me a well-known installer for a backup solution. And when I extracted it, there was about, I don't know, it was a 300 meg file. I think there's about 70,000 files within it. It contained cab files and MSIs and MSUs and more cab files and so forth and so forth. It kept going on and on and on. It only takes one bad egg in there, and it's game over. And then carry it on before you jump in. What if the file's encrypted? What if it's from a certain country, or even from a certain vendor? Help me, Szilard. You're my only hope.
Stephen, I like the Star Wars reference here. So let me try to be your only hope here. So
I'm not.
You're absolutely right. Obviously, just because a file arrives intact, which we just established in the previous point, that doesn't mean that it's clean. Okay, that's where deep content inspection comes in. We don't just stop at file extensions here because they are easy to spoof. We inspect archives recursively, way beyond that usual 5-layer limit that maybe was industry standards back in the days, but it isn't anymore. In fact, we have seen malicious content hiding in the 8th or the 10th level of a zip file. And as such, we need to unwrap it and unwrap it and unwrap it. And for encrypted files, we can also quarantine them or route them for specific special handling, like requiring the password via a secured side channel. We also support country of origin tagging, very important, and more organizations are relying on these techniques to be in control. Again, the word control is very important, to be in control. These are the type of things that I allowed to enter my high security network, and those are the ones that I definitely don't want to see. So origin, country of origin tagging and vendor filtering, very, very important. So customers can enforce policies based on these sources, and our solutions, the Meta Defender platform solutions, absolutely support these things. The goal is to know what that file is, what's inside it, and where it came from before we can actually say that, okay, we trust it. By the way, it's worth pointing out that file attributes like extensions are very, very, very easy to fake. Okay, just renaming an exe to a txt file, again, going back to your example, Stephen, doesn't change what it actually is. Okay, so that's why OPSWAT uses true type detection. It's a very important aspect of our Meta Defender core regime, which inspects the file's actual binary signature, not just the label that it's saying it's a text, it's a exe file or something else. That's miles ahead of traditional extension-based scannings.
All right. So that was brutal. And I have to tell you guys that what I'm really interested about, how we can strengthening the security controls against advanced threats. So Stephen, go ahead and let's discover the next.
Okay, so we're still on with the content of files, great. And I'm going to be honest, nowadays everyone talks about a defense in depth strategy and approach, but many companies still want the actual strongest defense at the boundary, the first one, right? That's, or even as they're crossing boundaries, they need the strength to be there. And it makes more sense, especially when we're talking about known threats. You don't want to wait until it's right at the EDR, the endpoint, before you capture it. You need to capture it earlier on. And if you look at many of the best practices nowadays, they're talking about multiple AVs. A single AV is not good enough. It's never been good enough, if I'm going to be honest. And quite often, I've heard people say, it's all right, we don't have a problem. Our AV scanner's doing fine. It's not reporting anything. You think, really? Me? I think this personally is one of those times where no news isn't necessarily good news. So, Salah, what can they do? I see you ready to jump in, mate, but wait. I've just said known threats. What about unknown threats or targeted attacks or 0 days or polymorphic malware? You know, the things that the AV engines do not yet know about. They've not seen. We're allowing pretty much external files into our trusted spaces. How can we be sure they're safe? Have a go with that one.
Stephen, excellent question. And again, I love it that it's a complex one. Okay, so let's break it down. So relying on just one AV engine to begin with is just simply not enough anymore. Maybe it was many years ago, but it just isn't enough anymore. It's just as simple as that. And our platform outshines everything in that regards. That our platform integrates multiple anti-malware engines in parallel to catch threats with a much higher detection rate. Okay, and we will explore how we take this to the next level. But for a second, let's stick with the AV engines. So think of this as a financial investment. Okay, so you probably wouldn't put all your money into a single stock and then just fingers crossed and hope for the best. You diversify your portfolio to cover different market conditions and reduce risk, because all we do here is really manage risks. Okay, it's the same with threat detection. Using multiple engines increases your chances of catching something malicious, even if one scanner misses it. And through OPSWAT's multi-scanning, which uses 30 plus actually anti-malware engines, detection ratio can be over 99% of all threats. But as I mentioned, let's not just think small here. Let's think big. Beyond that, what AV engines can give us, we also use heuristics and behavioral-based detections to flag suspicious patterns. Okay, and yes, even then, we assume something might slip through, and that's where something called sandboxing and file emulation comes in. And I hope I'm going to have the chance to go into details about these things during the discussion. But in a nutshell, we can emulate the detonation of a potentially malicious file, and we can observe the behavior. And compared to the traditional sandboxes, this is emulation based. We get the same results, but 100 times faster. And especially, this is especially useful for detecting 0 days and polymorphic malware. And polymorphic malware is that type of malicious software that constantly changes its code to avoid detection, but retains the same underlying functionality. It's still trying to do something very nasty, but it sort of changes its look and feel. And it alters the non-functional aspects of the code, like, you know, instruction order or register use, and as such makes the detection super hard. In fact, that's where our adaptive sandbox comes in, dynamically detecting these complex and invasive malware threats. It's integrated directly into the MetaDefender core platform for enhanced orchestration and sort of rapid detection in larger security workflows. So not only are we covering all the known threats at this stage, okay, we are building in smart detection for unknown ones as well. It's all about defense in depth, because just like the sort of the good investment strategy in finance, it's about not leaving yourself exposed on any front. And that's just one layer in terms of the complex security file scannings. In the MFT to MFT configuration that we built into our MFT solution, you can use MFT as a digital border checkpoint type of setup. Files are scanned before they even reach the high security environment. Okay, so all the goodies and the smarts that I just explained, you use them before the files actually come into your high security environment. We are already closing out, we are inspecting cargo at the border. If we want to stick with that example here, we're inspecting cargo at the border rather than once it's already inside the country. This pre-delivery scanning ensures that only clean, compliant files are allowed in, reducing the risk of threats slipping through and contamination of more sensitive areas on your local infrastructure. It's a very proactive preventive control, because by the time the threat reaches your high security or high trust zone, it usually is already too late. You don't want to do that.
Right, okay. Advanced threat. I'll tell you what, let's narrow it down a little bit more. Let's specifically look at more business type files. So office documents, PDFs, photos, images, videos, all of these new complex files that can have lots of embedded objects and malicious files within. I mean, you could have a PDF file that has, I don't know, an image file within it that's got stenography, it's got an executable within it that could be malicious. Is there anything that could be done here? Because anti-malware may not pick these up. I mean, and also, because I like to throw multiple things at you, so I mean, what if a file isn't malicious, but it still, could be exploitable, like an older version of an executable that has multiple CVEs? Because customers still need to be aware of this risk. And am I really going to allow potentially unwanted applications into my environment?
Very, very interesting question again. So I think business files are probably some of the trickiest because they look harmless, right? And to the naked eye and to the average user, PDF, a document, an image, right? How could it be harmful? But they can definitely carry embedded threats, okay? So that's where the content disarm and reconstruction, the CDR technology, plays a huge role. It takes supported file types and breaks them down. It actually strips out any active content out of that file. A good example is a macro in an Excel, and rebuilds a clean functional version. So even if the original had something that shouldn't be there, the clean file is rendered safe. So we are not even letting even if it's potentially harmful, we're not letting that in. We are rebuilding it into a same format, and the safe file, the rebuilt file, is what you then can transport into your high security network. Think of this as giving you the business value of the file, okay, without the risks, okay? So the functionality, the business value remains. And even for non-malicious but vulnerable formats, we can flag those, okay, and give customers a heads up, and the decision could be theirs to allow them to or not. I think the beauty with OPSWAT's MetaDefender core technology lies in the ability to orchestrate these multiple layers of defense, like antivirus engines, and then content, and then CDR, and then data loss prevention. And let's talk about that in a bit as well, if we can. And sandboxing, okay? So we build a workflow out of these different type of technologies, these different angles of finding what could be malicious, and we build it into a unified intelligent workflow instead of relying on a single method of detection. AV is a good example. It combines the strength of each of these different types of scanning technologies to maximize the threat visibility and obviously reduce the blind spots here. Think of it like, again, smart financial investment type of analogy. Diversify your portfolio, reduce risk, and increase stability. In the same way, MetaDefender Core ensures your FIS security strategy doesn't just stand on one leg, but rather has many, and that makes it a lot harder for any threat to slip through any potential cracks.
Yep, makes sense, mate. Okay, well, you did mention DLP. Funnily enough, it was almost like you knew what number 7 was going to be. So yeah.
Oh God, what's next, Steve?
About data loss prevention or data loss protection, whatever it is, data leak. I mean, generally, you think about when we're MFT, files coming in. But what about files, as you said, leaving the environment? I mean, there's many regulations out there governing sensitive data, and enterprises need a way of detecting this. I mean, because quite often data can be leaked, whether on purpose or accidentally. And there needs to be some way of either inspecting tags or, I don't know, looking for certain project names or specific critical elements within a file to ensure that there is no exposure, that these sort of files are not being removed unauthorized, an specific pinch point. And as I, carrying it on a little bit more, there must be something that we can do, as files are coming in and out at a second level of administration, some kind of, I don't know, release control, a supervisor approval, a second level, third level, whatever's needed in order to ensure that the files are allowed, because there's no point, because once the file's in, it's in. Once it's out, it's out. I know, it sounds like a kid song. But once the horse is bolted, you may not be able to get it back. What can we do about that?
Absolutely. The good old rule, once a file is out there, it's gone, okay? There's no way usually to pull it back to control the damage. So again, let's break it down into 2 parts here, okay? So first, let's talk about what we can help with organizations in terms of automated controls. And let's have a look at the human aspect as well, okay? So what do I mean by automated control? Okay, so it's not just about, as you said, not just about scanning what's coming into the system, can be scanned on the way out. And that's equally important for different reasons to check compared to the files coming in. Because here it's not an IT threat, it's not a cyber threat that potentially comes in a malicious file, but it's data that you're supposed to protect, you're supposed not to let out, potentially being let out. And that's where the DLP comes in, and DLP stands for data loss prevention. And DLP scanning, what it does, it dives into the actual content of the file. So not just looking at the attributes from the outside, but goes into the content of the file, looking for potentially sensitive information. And out of the box, it can identify lots of things. I'm just going to give you a few examples. Credit card numbers, okay? Typical PII, personally identifiable information. And it can go through the content of the file and say that, yeah, this one has a credit card number in it, so let's just flag that. But you can also add custom keywords you define, like a project code name. At my previous workplace, we use project code names, right? So I could set it up to say, look for keywords like Project Pegasus, okay? And if you find it, flag it. But, okay, so flagged. So now we have a tool that's flagging content type of thing. Once a match is found, you are not just stuck with just one reaction here, block it or not block it. You can configure rules to block the file outright, to quarantine the file for review, or even route it to a different location, okay? So it's very flexible by design. It's a logic engine that we built into MetaDefender MFT, and it works closely together with the DLP information we received from MetaDefender Core. Let's not forget, it's all one platform here. It's flexible by design, so you can align it with your internal data handling policies or compliance needs depending on your regulations. So that's the automated aspect here. And the human aspect, there's always going to be things that cannot be automated. So then we likely want to have someone who oversees a file and looks at a file before we say it's safe to exit our environment. And that's where supervisory approval workflow come into the picture. In a nutshell, it lets you build the manual check before files become accessible to others. Okay, so I could be uploading a file and the system could be set up in a way that my one-up manager needs to approve the file, literally needs to read it, say, okay, and then that triggers a workflow that says that this file is now available, can be shared, can be downloaded, can be moved. If someone uploads a document that includes sensitive financial data or confidential proposals or whatever it be, it won't be shared or downloaded right away. It's just another step of making sure that we don't have data leaks occurring. This adds a very critical checkpoint here, especially used in high-risk environments or teams dealing with sensitive material on a regular basis. Whether the upload was a genuine mistake or something a bit more intentional, doesn't really matter from this perspective. The process helps to make sure nothing gets distributed unless the right people said it's okay.
The last item. We're almost finished. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, we finally got there.
Yeah.
So, number 8. For me, it's unknown threats and clean files can inevitably become known threats in a matter of hours, even minutes sometimes. And it takes that long for then the detection, I guess, to make it into signatures, into engines, into decision trees, things like that. My concern is many CNI customers that I speak to have got quarantine periods and manual processes in place, some as long as 7 days, where files must be constantly rescanned during these periods and other things like that in order for them to be released, to ensure that there is no outbreak. Right? Is this something that you can deal with? What's your thoughts on this, Salah?
Yeah, manually controlling this, obviously can be done. It's a person or 2 or 10, depending on the scale here. But I think the key again is automation. So, and you're right, Stephen, this one resonates very well, really well with CNI customers. As threats evolve very fast, and it's just the fact that we have to deal with a file deemed clean today might be flagged tomorrow. So how do you want to deal with that automatically? And that's why we support quarantine workflows where files are held for a predefined period, could be hours, could be days, depends on your policy. And that's another thing that we're mentioning here, that everything we do, we let the organization customize. Okay, we give you tools and you can tailor them according to your organizational needs and the policies that your organization needs to adhere to. So again, administrator can set up whether that's hours or some days, and then they are being rescanned before actually being released. And it's all a policy-driven thing here. So high-risk zones with a dedicated MFT node deployed can have stricter rules than internal transfers with another dedicated MFT node. So there is a way to customize it. At the end of the day, we always want to balance business efficiency with security. Where it needs to be more secure, there you set it to a higher retention date here. If it's a less sort of internal transfer type of thing, maybe you don't need to quarantine at all, or you only need to quarantine it for a few hours. It's a bit like putting incoming packages through a second round of customs after new contraband has been discovered. Okay, this delayed relay strategy is essential for keeping sensitive systems safe, and the automation aspects, I think, again, reduces that aspect where actually humans are making mistakes. They are forgetting things. Automation doesn't do that. So there you go, a mechanism that you can trust here.
Amazing. So after this session, guys, you made my job really hard to summarize it. So here we cover today the 8 must-have capabilities that define a truly secure MFT, from access control to outbreak prevention, the end. But each one plays a critical role. And it's not just about picking 1 or 2 or any of them one by one, but it's a combination of these capabilities that builds real resilience. So think of it as a security stack. Is there anything you want to add here, Szilárd?
Yeah, Janos, thank you, and thank you for having me here. So before we end, maybe I want to leave you with this thought here. Okay, so MFT solutions are not just file storage. That's not what they do anymore. It's not just a file storage with a send receive button here. They are the backbone of a secure management data flow in modern organizations. They bring that structure into the potential chaos, wrapping policies, automation, access control, security scanning, all the things that we discussed today. They wrap it around every file movement, not just some, but all of them. With the right MFT in place, you're not just moving files, you are in control. You are controlling how they move, who sees them, the risk they carry. You get visibility of what you are up against, and you are always in the driver's seat, I guess. And I think it's a lot about visibility here. It's about compliance, and above all, it's about trusting your data flows, okay? Not having to think about, are they in the right place? Knowing that your sensitive files are safe, and knowing that you're not letting anything harmful in. So I think that's the real value of an MFT. And if that's the level of control and sort of confidence you're looking for, then let's talk, okay? I think that's why OPSWAT is here. That's why the people on the call are here. We would love to hear about your use cases and show you how our MFT can be a solution for you.
You're right. That's correct. So a huge thanks to Steven, and huge thanks to you, Szilárd, for the great insights and perspective. We hope this gave you a practical lens on what secure file transfer and what secure MFT should look like. Now we would like to hear from you. Drop your question in the Q&A box, and we will take them one by one. And thank you so much. I really do appreciate being here. See ya.
Thank you.